What would you do if a 5 foot tall spider with a human head grabbed a sack of kittens that was already hanging in a river and climbed a cliff to proceed to eat those kittens? What would you do? In the first chapter of First Test, this is where our main character, Keladry of Mindolin, has found herself. She just fought the boys who were going to drown the kittens, but before she could get the kittens out of the river, an immortal creature, a spidrin, a spider with human intelligence and a human face, is eating the kittens. Kel was given the instruction to blow a horn if she came across any creatures like this to summon soldiers, and she does so. She follows the command. But she also grabs some rocks and fords across the river to try and rescue the kittens. I love this book. I love this character, and I love this series. I love the world that these are set in, and I love the author who created them. Tamora Pierce, publishing between 1983 and 2018. This book came out right in the middle in 1999. It is the smallest book in the series, and I think it's the most tightly edited. They benefited from the Harry Potter series coming out in the United States, and so young adult publishers affording some authors like Tamora Pierce more page space in which to tell their stories. The second, third, and fourth book are longer, but I think the first book is the most tightly edited. No wasted words, no wasted plot threads, nothing brought up and forgotten the way some things kind of are in some of the later books. I'm going to keep summarizing this book. I'm going to keep talking about this book. I don't really have a script, so I'm just sharing this based on vibes, I guess. I do have 4 points to sort of guide me through it. The first one being this book is well edited, particularly even compared to the later books in the series. Spoilers. Always spoilers is, let's see, I have notes. I don't have a script, I have notes. Very beginning of the chapter, at the very beginning of the book, starts with Alanna. Alanna being the Lady Knight from the very first Tortall series, Song of the Lioness. Disguised herself as a boy for 8 years in order to earn her shield, and then a few years later, King John proclaimed noble girls can try for their shield, as can noble boys. But it's been 10 years and nobody has come forward until we get to Kel. Alanna's very excited initially. Yay, here's this girl finally. I can't wait to talk to her and give her advice. But no. The training master believes perhaps that Alanna cheated or used her magic to enable her to earn her shield, and doesn't want her to have anything to do with Kel for her training, and also wants to put Kel on a year of probation, at the end of which he gets to decide if she can stay and continue training, or if she's not good enough, can't keep up, and it's a waste of everybody's time to let her keep trying. So this angers Alanna so much she doesn't speak to John for the next 4 years. Her and John have been best friends since they were pages. As another example of the tight editing in this, we are introduced to the training master as he is rereading the letter from Kel's father explaining that Kel would like to try for her shield. And then in the next scene, we are introduced to Kel rereading the letter she has received from Wyldon. Wyldon and Kel are tightly connected from the beginning to the end of the series. So that's how we meet them. The first Lady Knight in over 100 years, the king and the compromise he's making between her and how she represents progress, and Wyldon, the training master, and how he deliberately represents a more conservative value of women don't belong in combat scenarios. The quote on the back of the book is from him. Girls are fragile, more emotional, easier to frighten. They are not as strong in their arms or shoulders as men. They tire easily. This girl would get any warriors who served with her killed on some dark night. So that's the training master and his opinion and perspective and what Kel has to come up against. Presented this letter, this opportunity, this disappointing news of this probationary thing she's going to have to do, goes off to have a think, encounters the kittens, encounters the spidrin, moves to save the kittens, climbs a cliff. Kel is paralyzingly afraid of heights. Now we know this too. She has a significant weakness. The soldiers come because she did blow the horn like she was supposed to. The spidrin is killed. The remaining kittens are rescued. And Kel has made up her mind. Even though the probationary condition is unfair, she is going to accept it and she is going to pursue her training. She is going to prove that she is as good as any of the other boys trying for their knighthood. Then we get to chapter 2, which also holds my my point two. So Kel's things are brought to her room while she and her father meet the training master, and he lays out the rules for her, what's expected of her while she's there during her training. She says goodbye to her father, goes with one of the head servants to her room and discovers that it's already been vandalized. Her things have been broken into, furniture has been broken, graffiti has been put on the wall. And the servant's like, okay, this is our job. We'll clean this up. You go ahead and get ready because you're all going to be lining up soon. Kel planned on wearing breeches, pants, for most of her training. I mean, obviously during training she would, but she planned on wearing pants anyway the rest of the time so that she didn't stick out any more than she was already going to. Given this vandalism that happened before she even had a chance to see anyone else, she wears a dress. She's not ashamed of being a girl, and she's not going to try and pretend she's not. She's not going to hide it. She wears a dress to make sure that no one's going to forget that she's a girl among them. She lines up with the other year mates, and they're supposed to have sponsors among the older pages, and when it's time for somebody to sponsor Kel, nobody speaks up initially. Then we get Joran, who offers to sponsor her, and the training master, who does not want Kel there, is sort of hesitant. Then Neil speaks up. Neil ends up being Kel's best friend over the course of the series. Neil is fantastic. Neil is 5 years older than the other first year pages. He has abandoned midway through a university education to become a healer mage. He feels he has a duty to become a knight since his older brothers who were knights were killed in the recent Immortals War. Kel's brothers also participated in that war and were a factor in why Wyldon couldn't really deny that Kel could be in the program, because it wasn't like her parents didn't know what she was going to be getting into. They already had 3 sons who were knights, so they knew what they were getting into, at least as far as what the training was supposed to be. So that's Neil. Neil's signed up as a page even though he was going to be a healer mage, even though Neil is not a jock. That's the point. So even though Neil is not athletic, he's not a jock, he hates the physical training part that's involved with being a knight, but he knows it's what he needs to do in order to become a knight, which is what he wants to do genuinely. Neil shows her around, gets her some of her supplies, and then the head servant comes and finds her again and lets her know that they have put magical protections around Kel's room now so that only she can unlock her door or unlock the shutters on her windows. This was my point too, that the people in decision-making capacity, as far as Kel is concerned, took her safety seriously. It was illustrated immediately that the boys were not going to respect the safety and privacy of her room as they would expect for themselves. That's another level beyond the fact that she's got the probationary condition on her. So they put barriers in place so that that just can't happen again. In her room, Kel is safe. Here's part of why I bring this up. Through the first and second book, first test is her first year, and then the second book is Paige is the second, third, and fourth year. Wyldon never really wants Kel there. Like I read from that back cover excerpt, he doesn't believe women belong in combat at all. It's not a Kel thing. It just shouldn't be. And he says halfway through Squire at one point that he did everything he could to try and make her quit. He's taking responsibility for his actions at that point. But I observed that if he truly wanted her gone, probably it was up to him whether or not this magic was allowed to be placed around her room to keep her safe. And he permitted that. He didn't want something bad to happen to Kel. If he truly wanted her gone, that would have been the way to let that happen, to make circumstances intolerable even for someone like Kel. Point 2, there's that. Took her safety seriously. So we get into training. Neil is a helpful friend. Neil is a reliable friend. Kel gets a new horse. It's a little too big for her, but there aren't too many other options, and he's already been abused, so he doesn't really want any riders. He's pretty hard on anybody who comes close to him. Kel is trying to save him, basically, by having him be at least her page horse to soften him up and make him tolerate other people more, help him tolerate other people more, because she doesn't want him to become dog meat. But ultimately, he is still biting her. He is still stepping on her. This is a world with magic. This world has Daine the Wild Mage. Daine was the main character from the second series in the Tortall world, the Immortal series. Neil takes Kel to Daine and basically asks her to help facilitate some communication between Kel and her horse Peachblossom so that he can stop being such a pain. And Daine does. She says, I can't change his nature. And Kel says, I don't really want you to. Can you just make his mouth a little softer so I have an easier time with the reins? And Daine also teaches Peachblossom commands so that Kel can use verbal commands instead of using spurs to direct him. So Kel has just demonstrated that she cares for this horse who has done her no kindness. And Daine is probably aware that Kel has been feeding the sparrows in the courtyard outside her window, even though there's no reason to do so at all. She's just doing it because they're there, and that's kind of what she does. She's going to take care of the small creatures around her. She saved the kittens from the spydren at the beginning. Daine is probably aware of Kel. Daine is certainly aware of Kel by name, just as Kel is aware of Daine by name. Now they've met. They both have an interest in taking care of animals. So this is the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Daine is right up there with Kel as among my favorites. Kel comes into the story with some significant martial skill to start with. She has been training since age 5 in just some sort of hand-to-hand combat, as well as specifically with a naginata, a Japanese-style naginata, which is a long pole arm with the 2-foot blade on the end of it. For 6 years, she's already been training before she becomes a page. Now, the training they do in the Eastern lands is different than what they did where Kel was. Kel, with her parents, was on a diplomatic mission in the Yamani Islands, which is a different culture, a Japanese-inspired style of culture. Tortall is kind of more like a mixed mash of English, French, and Spanish, but they're on the eastern side of the Emerald Ocean, so they are the Eastern lands. So Kel has this foreign training, and now she's in her knighthood training, and she's got to adapt herself to not stick out again, with some mixed results. But baseline point is, Kel already has a physical aptitude. She's also big. She's 5'1" in the first story, and she's 10 years old, as compared to Alana, who I think is 5'4", so she's short among her male peers. The other reason that's really important is because then it's that much harder to pick on her, right? Like, they already vandalized her room right from the start. So now on the training courts, some of the bullies are trying to pick on her as well. But especially with the staff, she is superior to all of them already. They practice with bows and arrows, they do hand-to-hand combat, they do the horse training, and then there's the classroom work too. Kel has, again, mixed results in there. She's good at mathematics, middling with a lot of the other things, and then eventually, after a couple of months, they get to their lance training, which is on the horse with a lance so that they can do jousting later on. Kel has a really hard time holding the lance up to start with. Like, this is the first time she's really struggled with something physically and thinks to herself, okay, I guess it's true that women are not as strong through their shoulders as boys. Her struggle the first time with the lance on Peachblossom is witnessed by Lord Roald of the King's Own being one of the high-level military branches close to the king, and a squad of the King's Own. She's got an audience to a moment where she accidentally hits her horse with the lance, can't keep the point up to actually hit the target, and the horse rears and she's almost thrown off. Luckily for her, she neither drops the lance nor falls off the horse, so she's grateful for small favors. I'm going to come back to the lance in a second and backtrack to the boys and bullying thing from the beginning. Kel does not like bullies. The boys who are drowning the kitten are already on the lookout for her because she's established that fact back home. Here in the palace in training, she was warned by her oldest brother not to snitch if there was any fighting or hazing involved, because that would get her isolated from any social interaction. It happened to a boy in his year. There's a hazing ritual when it's limited to things like run to my room, grab my homework, fill my ink for me, fetch a book for me. It's kind of practice for something. There's practice, that's the cover for it, for what they are supposed to be doing anyway. If a higher ranked noble asks them to do something, they're going to follow the command. So it's practice in that way. Bully boys take it too far, pushing kids down, calling them names, making them do ridiculous tasks over and over again. Kel encounters this one night, one of her yearmates being, I think he's being pushed around, and she runs away. So that's very upsetting because she's never run away from a fight with a bully before. And not too long after that, back to the lance, after training. She's all the last one finishing cleaning up her gear, and she drops her lance. A piece of wood pops out of it, and she discovers that the inside of her lance has a lead core, which it's not really supposed to have. She certainly wasn't aware of it. So that she goes over to somebody else's lance and picks it up, and it's half as heavy as hers. This finally explains to her why she's had such a hard time controlling this pole arm. She puts the wood back in, she cleans the thing back up. She thinks about how the last few weeks and days have gone. And the next time she encounters some of the older boys picking on a different year mate, there's 3 of them and 1 of Kel, and she starts the fight. But when she's confronted with Lord Wyldon, she has the script, I fell down. So he has no reason, either because she has been accused of being in a fight or has admitted to being in a fight, to send her home. I fell down. Isn't a reason to send somebody home. This one stands out to me with, this is Kel proving herself to be as good as the boys in a way that isn't in the rules, that can't be acknowledged in the rules. The boys aren't supposed to fight. The boys are expected to fight. It's against the rules to fight. It's more against the rules to tell the truth that you are in a fight. It's this twisting of what your expectations are. And in this way, Kel performs as she's supposed to. And it's right there in Wyldon's face. He's got it's gradual confrontations, and Kel doesn't back down. So that's the beginning. That first fight is the beginning of what's referred to as Kel patrolling the hallways. So after their classes, after their evening meal, when they meet to do study groups and homework groups together, she starts off with her group of friends and then just goes out into the hallways. And obviously her friends realize that she's going off, and sometimes she comes back like she just went for a little jog, and other times she ends up hauled in front of Wyldon because she's been fighting. I fell down again. And so Neil confronts her, and she just explains that the difference between the hazing ritual, which, okay, I get it because it's kind of like us following orders, versus bullying, pushing down, pulling hair, calling names, things like that. Kel's not going to stand for it. She makes an impression on all of them. So Kel's friend group has grown gradually over the course of the year. Among these boys is actually Prince Roald, who's the oldest son of King John. He's 2 years older than Kel, or 1 year? 2 years. Yeah, he's the same age as Joran and the other main group of bully boys. Big differences between John's personality and Roald's personality. John is more extroverted. John was always much more sure of himself and his privilege as a prince. In the first Alana book, he really had no problem ganging up on a bully, a boy who was bullying Alana. John took 3 big guys and beat the crap out of this other guy. No one was going to get him in trouble for that. Roald isn't like that. Even though he definitely agrees with Kel, he does not want to assert his royal privilege the way his father used to. They're just very different in that way. After this little speech, it ultimately results in her friends, more of her friends joining her, and then their patrol group is just too numerous for these bullies to keep looking for first years to pick on. And then we get to everyone finds out publicly at the same time about Kel's paralyzing fear of heights. This introduces also Baylor's Needle, which is a very tall tower, a sorcerer's tower. You climb to the top and it can help you with far-seeing and other magical workings. In a story with a character who has a paralyzing fear of heights, and you have a crazy tall tower with an outer spiraling stair, she's going to climb it at some point, but not in this book. Keeps going through training, and one day her practice lance shatters, and Joran, the same person who gave her her first lance, who has been bullying a lot of the other first years, runs to grab her replacement lance and give it to her, and it's the same weight as the one she's been using, so she realizes it's a prepared leaded lance for her. Something falls into place in terms of what she needs to do, and she locks on the target and hits it for the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, and for the first time, Lord Wyldon says, "Well done," gives her praise, and lets her go take care of her horse. So then we get into the summer training. Wyldon takes the pages on different excursions to different areas of the country, and this time they're in the royal forest. Lots of trees. Lots of trees to make Kel climb, to force her to confront her fear of heights. You can argue both ways, and they do in the book, of whether he's trying to make her quit by forcing her to do this, or forcing her to confront her fear to overcome it. Before their camp training is done, the king King's Own scoops up the pages because they do bring them sometimes on missions with them, and this one is a rescue mission and a spydren hunt. A whole nest of spydrens have captured a bunch of cows and at least one person. Yeah, it is. It is one person. It's just one woman and some animals. But they are going to try and rescue this woman. The sequence of the last couple of chapters in that spydren hunt introduce a lot of elements that recur later on. This is the first time that the sparrows, who, by the way, some of them came with Kel on this summer camping trip because they are loyal to her. There's magic, animal magic. This is a choice that the sparrows can make and do. And Kel just sort of remarks, it's too bad you guys couldn't be spies for us. And sparrows say, let me show you. And essentially go and find a piece of twig with the spider's web on it, bring it back to Kel. Kel brings it to Lord Roald, the commander of the King's Own, and explains that her sparrows brought it to her, and he's like, do you have wild magic? No, but I think they could lead us to the nest. And her friends speak up for her, and Roald notices that. He notices both her ability to speak when she feels she must, and that her peers, the people who would know her best, are willing to speak up for her as well, and her sparrows, basically, to vouch for them. Lord Wyldon doesn't naysay it either. They follow the sparrows. They find the spydren nest. They set up their plan of attack. Most of the pages don't have magic, and that includes Kel, and so they are kind of put as the rear guard. Make sure no spydrens come up on our backside. And she demonstrates again her ability to follow the command and to hold the position that she's given, even if they think it's going to be boring and safe, and it obviously, because otherwise why would you have it in here? It's not. A couple of spydrens do come up on the backside. Kel saves at least one of her yearmates who is revenge driven because spydrens killed his father, and rally her yearmates to focus to take out this couple of spydrens that were coming on them. So that's how she gets to almost close out the book, is with this sort of combat victory. So at least she did that. At least if Wyldon won't let her come back, she led a spydren hunt. I didn't say point 3 when I started getting into point 3, but it was the fact of all that, the lance training, the praise, Lord Roald following the sparrows, the leadership and combat training. All of those were the early threads that are being set up in first test that are built upon in the later series like you want to see. My fourth point is that Lord Wyldon surprises everyone, most of all himself, by allowing Kel to stay at the end of her probationary year. Kel she was ready to go back home away from the city because she couldn't imagine running into her friends and perhaps going back to the Yamani Islands. Like, she already expected that she was not going to be allowed to come back. But he does. He finds his honor before it's too late. I think that's how he phrases it when he talks about it later on in Squire. And he still doesn't want her there, but he's just going to go ahead and allow her to prove herself without putting any extra burdens upon her. Oh, so actually, no, that is point 4. The point 4 is not the fact... Shit. The point 4 is not the fact that he surprises himself by letting her stay. It's the fact that Kel is a flat character. No, correction. Keladry is a round character who has a flat character arc. Not only did I forget it, I didn't say the correct thing. She doesn't change. She changes the people and circumstances around her. Hi! Rosie just woke up from her nap. She inspires those around her to be their best selves and become better. She never changes her goals from this book to the others. She really never changes her perspective. You're not required to agree with Kel to enjoy the book or anything like that. But it's very clear from this book all the way through the last book how she feels about duty, how she feels about chivalry, how she feels about bullies, how she feels about fairness and justice. And none of that changes. And then somehow, I just did that whole recap of that book and never mentioned that Kel has a unknown, mysterious benefactor for the entirety of this first book. They send her a very handy belt knife with a sharpener, a whetstone. They send her a magicked bruise balm. They send like sand balls, like for grip strength training, and a booklet of instructional exercises that she can do with them. And at the end of the book, they send a beautifully crafted saddle with saddlebags for Peachblossom for Kel. And there's no notes, there's no explanations, there's no names of who it is that's sending these gifts to Kel, but they serve the purpose of letting Kel know that someone out there wants her to succeed. I can't believe I just went through that whole summary without mentioning that. It's not a mystery if you are a reader with any critical reading skills who the benefactor could be. But Kel is very intelligent. She is an exceptional problem solver, especially. She's very astute. She has good instincts, but she's not like overly clever. She's not one to puzzle out a mystery. She doesn't do subtlety. She doesn't do double meanings. So she never does suspect the most obvious character, the very first character named in the book, of wanting her to succeed. I do really appreciate you watching this, especially if you watched all the way to the end. I know it was a little bit all over the place, but I did pretty much progress through from the beginning to the end of the story. And my 4 points were: it's a well-edited book, they take Kel's safety seriously, a lot of groundwork is laid in this first book. I know, Rosie. Okay, let's wait it out. Point 3, a lot of the groundwork was laid out in this book that grows in the later books. And Kel is a flat character. No, Keladry is a round character who has a flat character arc. 4th point, she doesn't change. Her goals do not change, but she inspires the people around her to be their best selves. Thank you for watching. Hit like if you did. Leave a comment, especially if you've read this. I'd love to hear what you think of The Protector of the Small series, and I'll catch you on the next one.